One of the things my daddy told me one time, it was probably within a year before he passed away. He said, "You always want everybody to be happy."
Oh, yeah. I don't think he was wrong.
Correct. That's right. I wonder if it's because I don't know that I was always that way, because I do think that there's been a strong line of codependency in my world, but there's peace, I think, that can come with happiness.
Yeah, to a degree.
Okay. Oh, well, before I go on, I need you to define that.
So there can be peace amongst others.
Sure.
But sometimes trying to make everybody else happy
Oh, yeah.
drives you crazy.
Yes.
I don't mean you specifically.
Oh, no, you can't say that.
I mean, it may fit. I mean, if the shoe fits.
Yeah.
But when I found that when I'm trying to make everybody else happy, and I find myself stuck in the middle, usually of different viewpoints and relationships and whatever, and then I am the one who ends up frustrated.
It's true.
And so there's an element of, like, I get it. There's enough people pleaser in me who wants to try and make everybody happy.
Sure.
And if somebody's going to suffer, then yeah, fine, I'll bear it. I'll take it, whatever. Yeah. But if you do that enough,
yeah,
if you do that long enough,
you get weary.
It gets weary,
yes.
And then you begin to kind of struggle with a little bit of resentment.
Yeah, yeah.
And then to try and mix that up, oh, you just changed the rules of all those relationships, and they don't like that.
Okay. Fair. All very fair. I still would rather have a peaceful house. And I know peaceful and happy are not the same, because you can be unhappy and still have peace.
True.
They coexist.
Yes.
And how do you do conflict well, et cetera, et cetera? Well, you know that I'm in the season of all adult kids. All my children are adults, legally. Now, one was 17 one day and became a legal adult the next day because of her birthday. And she is bearing down on 19. But legally,
and
they're
that's your
all
littlest
adults.
one.
That's
yeah,
the
your
youngest. Yes, she's in college and about to finish her freshman year.
Yay!
Yeah, no, doing a great job. But recently, because we have two in school and at home, I kind of lost it.
Really? Mm-hmm. What happened?
So I did not keep the peace. I finally had to speak my piece.
Okay.
There's mixed messaging when you have adults, all adults in a family, especially when they are young adults. And the mixed messages go like this: Mom, you can do that because it's inconvenient. I don't have time. It's too hard. But don't ask me not to do this because I'm an adult.
I want my cake and I want to eat it too.
So when I
Is
first
what I'm
heard,
hearing.
okay, I remember. Okay, the oldest is going to turn 30 in the fall.
Yeah.
I remember the first time she said to me that she was adulting. So this term's been around for a little bit.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm sorry, what? What'd you say? I'm an adult now. I'm adulting. And I'm like,
what did that mean in her world at that time?
So my kids have long since, when they were teenagers before the whole adult status, would always say, well, like when I get my license, then I can drive myself and go get a donut, or I can go out.
Sure you can. And you can buy the gas and
I'm
pay
sorry.
for the insurance and buy the donut
it's
and
funny
do
enough,
the,
but-
yeah.
Yeah, so, but, I mean, we operate with the information we have. That's true for older adults, too.
Yeah.
So I laugh, but I was like, oh, that's what that means. Okay, you do realize that adulting comes with responsibility, too. Now, I do not want to disparage my kids because they are learning
You've got good kids.
to be responsible. But it is a process. And so we're kind of got to this standstill, which is what brought on my, I'm not doing this anymore. We are communicating about something that is bugging me. And that is, I get told I'm adulting. Don't ask me questions about certain things. But it's those certain things that are concerning because they may be the same things that are coming over and over again. So I think I can tell this story without betraying anything, but my son is in school and he's about to finish. He may be a little bit behind. So he's sensitive to the question, how is school going? I get that.
I get that too.
I understand. It may or may not be a topic of conversation quite often, but we know that he's stressed. He's got a full-time job. He's got a part-time job. Like, he's trying to finish well. There may be times where I see he could probably shore up his schedule and get something else done, but I really am, Steve, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I am taking a step back and saying, you have to do this. You chose to go back to school. You're going to finish on your terms. And we share an office
Okay.
at home. So recently he was downstairs and not up in the office. And I said, "Are you done with your schoolwork?" And he turned and he said it just like this. So it was very respectful. He goes, "Please don't ask me that." And I said, if you're not watching YouTube right now, the pause is on purpose because
yeah.
I'm communicating with my face.
Oh, yeah. The eyebrow just raised.
Oh,
and-
bless.
Yeah. Oh,
I said, are you done with the computer? Are you finished upstairs? I'm sorry. I was asking an innocent question, and I just wanted an answer. And he felt badly because he heard it as, are you working on your schoolwork? Are
Right.
you doing your are you?
Your mom and me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I understand he heard that. I understand I could have used better words. But again, there are concerns sometimes. And so if the wrong words came out, I apologized. He goes, "Then ask me that, Mom. Ask me if I'm finished upstairs. Don't ask me about school." Okay. In my defense, I'm thinking, I haven't asked you about school for like a week or 2
Yeah.
weeks or 3, whatever the time frame is. And then the 18-year-old gets involved in the conversation because she's the peacemaker.
Oh, yeah.
Bless her.
Mm-hmm.
And she comes to me and says, "Mom," but now she and I had recently had a conversation as well about this whole adulting thing and what it means and what it doesn't mean. And sometimes we that are a little older and have lived life a little longer and are not out to spoil your fun
Right.
are saying, "Hey, this area right here, we need to talk about this area. It's for your good." And of course, her response was probably what I said to my mother at 18. "Sometimes, Mama, we have to learn it the hard way." No.
But is that not true?
Oh, it is
It-
true. And I said,
I look at my life.
yes, I know. And like, chief of sinners, right? Like, I totally get what Paul was saying when he
Yeah.
said to, I don't remember which church, Corinth, Ephesus, whatever, Philippians, I'm the chief of sinners. So I get that. But when you see some just little things, so you want to discuss that, right? But my mixed messages, and that's what I explained to her. Like, here's the mixed messages I get from you guys. Because oftentimes we're told as parents, you send mixed messages. If you are at a friend's house and you go, "Okay, Johnny, we're going to go. You've got 5 minutes." And 25 minutes later, Johnny hasn't cleaned up because Johnny knows Mama didn't mean 5 minutes.
Right.
Mama meant an hour and a half.
An hour and a half, or when the pitch of the voice gets to this point, then it's for real.
Correct.
But until then,
Correct.
it doesn't mean anything.
More parenting flaws. My kids pretty much knew on the third time I meant it.
Yeah.
Like, that was the rhythm we got in.
Well, you lived in the Midwest for a while, and
Yes.
you had the stereotypical Midwest long goodbye. And I've noticed that some of the Southerners do that too.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We say goodbye in this room of the house,
Yep.
and then we move over here and we say goodbye then. And then we get to the front door, we say goodbye there. And then maybe on the front steps or the driveway. Yeah.
Depending on the weather.
Depending on the weather.
It's true. And that's all mixed messaging.
Right.
So when you tell me as an adult person, I want to do these things because I'm an adult, but I don't want to do these things because
I don't want to
that's
do
not
these things.
convenient. I'm
Yeah.
like, whoa, hold up. Like, this is not how this goes. It's all encompassing. And so I was thankful that my kids are willing to have the conversation. I mean, they could just say, I'm done. I don't want to talk about this. And I did say, if I didn't care, like, y'all would be out on your own. I do know parents that say at 18, bye.
You out. Yep.
You're going to figure this out. And if that's your system, go for it. That's not my system. I want you emancipated and you'll get there. But right now, there's school and all the things. And she's going to school locally, so she didn't want to live in the dorm. Don't blame her. Just don't blame her. But we have to have an understanding.
Right.
I'm thankful they're willing to discuss it and not just say, Mom, I'm out, because it cuts both ways, right? The
Yeah.
parents can say you're out, but the kids could also say, done, not talking to you anymore. I'm on
Yeah.
with my life. And that is unfortunate.
And apparently
And
that is a bit of a growing trend.
I am
Where
so sad about that.
Kids are doing that. And, you know, I was thinking about this a little bit, and I'm wondering, is there a correlation between the fact that as a culture and society, we are so much more readily comfortable talking about the fact that we're going to counseling and we're like a lot of that stigma is going away.
Sure.
And sometimes people are talking about the fact that as they open up and share with counselors and friends about a lot of the stuff that they've walked through and had to go through, they're hearing people say, oh, your parents never should have done that to you.
Oh, sure.
That never should have
Yeah,
happened.
That's real.
And as we, in one sense, have tried to become mentally healthier, we have drawn boundaries that may or may not actually be that healthy. We've drawn boundaries.
How do you figure that out, though, Steve? Because, like, boundaries are good.
Absolutely.
And
there.
I'm glad that both my kids were able to say to me what they said. Like, for Micah to say, Mom, could you just, because he is sensitive to that right now. He's pushing to the finish line.
Yeah.
I should have thought of that. It just didn't come out right. But we could talk about it.
Sure.
And I'm glad that Hannah could say what she said, and we had a nice conversation for probably about 20 minutes. And ended on a peaceful note. Everybody was good. I am sad, though, when because I was raised differently than that. Like, one of my parents was like, I told you, I don't care if you're 50 years old, I told you need to do this, and he fully expected me to do it.
At 50 years old?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
I'm like, you do know I have 3 kids, a husband, and like,
right.
I've had my driver's license for a lot of years now, and it's like, no, it didn't matter. So
Didn't
there's
matter,
an
huh?
impasse, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So the boundaries, like, how do you set healthy boundaries? And as a believer, and if you are a believer, like, you have to throw the Bible in the mix of this
Oh, yeah, you do.
conversation. Because if you don't, then we're dishonoring what the Lord has told us.
Honor your mother and father. Right?
That's huge.
That you may live a long life and it'll go well with you. Ah, man. And I think that is a thing that a lot of people struggle with.
Sure.
What does it look like to honor your mother and father when they're making decisions that you disagree with? Or you're making decisions that they disagree with, and they're going to be vocal and tell you about that.
Yes.
And I think that is one of those challenging seasons of life is when, as adults, whether young adults and middle-aged adults or middle-aged adults and older senior adults, when you don't see eye to eye on issues,
Right.
how are you going to work through that? Honor your mother and father, especially if it seems as if the decisions they're making, what they're encouraging you to do, what they're pushing for, doesn't line up with Scripture.
I was reading something recently from the Gospel Coalition that Beth Clace wrote. She reminded us that scripture doesn't say honor your father and mother if.
Right.
It says honor your father and mother. What does that look like? It doesn't mean you have to agree. It doesn't mean you have
Yep.
to do what they say. But it does mean that you don't dishonor them by, I don't know, talking badly about them, by turning a deaf ear to them. Now, I think there are times if it's an abusive situation,
Sure.
you do have to walk away. That's a different parameter.
Abuse is different.
Abuse
right?
is different.
Criminal is different. Things, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And maybe it's the abuse of the tongue. Like, you cannot get away from that. I understand that. I would go to the Lord and say, how do I honor this person when they're not honorable, but they're my parent?
Yeah.
That prayer has been uttered.
I think you are in good company. A lot of people
Certainly.
have prayed that prayer and have struggled to know, how do I honor my parents well?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's one specific parent and the other one you have a pretty good relationship
Sure.
with, but one is a challenge. And what does that look like? And I'm glad you brought up the point a moment ago that it doesn't mean that you have to agree.
Yeah.
But I do think there's, assuming, it's not an absolutely toxic relationship, that there is an element of at least being willing to listen, being at least willing to hear that person out.
Now, when you say listen, are you saying listen so I can tell you my opinion? Or are you saying listen to contain the story?
To contain.
Okay.
Right.
Because that's different.
It is different. But there can be times, I think, where, as a son, if my dad or my mom were to come and say, hey, I have a concern about this, or I think you should be doing this, and here's why. In my case, and I realize not everybody's case is like mine, but in my case, I can look and say, I know the character of my parents. I know that they are believers. I know that they do truly love and care and want the best. Therefore, I am going to at least hear them out.
Yeah.
Listen,
Right.
contemplate, contain. May come to a different conclusion, but at least we'll listen. And we'll take whatever they have to say into consideration.
And then they have to decide, like I have to decide with my kids, am I going to listen, give my advice or opinion or concern, however you want to label it, and then you still have to let them make their choices.
Right.
Like, you might sit there like wringing your hands and praying and all the above, but they, as Hannah Mae said, Mama, sometimes we have to make our own choices and mistakes, and we learn from that.
Which is true. I look over the course of my life and yes, very much that was the case.
Me
where-
too, but that's what I'm trying to keep
Yeah,
them from
you're
doing.
trying to keep them from doing it, right?
I don't want you to do what I did.
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. But there's a point where I think, and I don't want this to sound like a pass the buck cheesy answer here, but I
good.
think there is an element of truth in this.
Okay.
Of God is sovereign over all things.
It's true.
And do I believe that or not? Do I believe that he can use even the stupid decisions that my kids may make and the things that they do to teach them something, cultivate character, bring them to a point of brokenness that he needs for whatever reason? Do I believe that he is still going to work in their lives in the midst of the pain that, he's going to teach them and show them something that about himself and about the walking with him that they're not going to learn any other way?
I think we had a conversation with a guest recently where we were talking about getting in the Lord's way because we're trying to help our kids. We're trying to protect our kids. And I remember when the Lord said to me about one of the kids, like, you are protecting that child from me. I need you to get out of the way.
Yeah.
The Lord also reminds me when I get all up in my head about whatever, Don Ray, if I have redeemed you and I have brought you to a point in your life where you are following me and you grieve your sin and the things that, as believers, we hope that we have, do you not think I can do this in anybody else's life, in particular your children? And of course, it humbles you so quickly.
Yeah.
Because, oh Lord, forgive me for my pride. Forgive me for, trying to be your Holy Spirit. And I'm taking be your hands and feet to a whole new level when it comes to my kids. You just so what you think is the best for them. But you are so limited, you don't know. And Steve, you're right. When we say we believe that the Lord is sovereign and that he loves them more than we do,
Right?
put your
But
money where your
that's
mouth
where the rubber
is,
kind of hits the
sister.
road, doesn't it?
Yes.
It
I'm
really
pointing at me.
does. And there may come a point, and there may not, but there may come a point where we do have to let our kids make their mistakes, and they will come back to us and say, you know what, you were right. They may never say that, but they may.
They might.
They may come back and say, I know you tried to warn me about this, and I didn't choose to listen, and I wish I would have. Or you tried to warn me about this, And there may be a redemption story out of that. Where they say, I know you tried to warn me about this, but I went ahead and I did it anyway. But this is how I saw God show up in the midst of that. I know I can say that as I think about some of the dumb decisions that I've made over the years, where I think my parents probably tried to warn me about things. And I've even gone back and said, you can warn me stronger next time. You know?
That's funny.
Because
Right?
I went ahead and made decisions that
They weren't loud enough.
That I
My kids will never say that.
Okay. I'm like, you could have been louder about certain things. I don't know if it would have made a difference or not. I probably would have gone ahead in my stubbornness and still made my own
Sure.
stupid decisions. But, to be able to look back and say, yeah, mom and dad were right about this. The concerns they had were legitimate. But, man, I see how God still worked and redeemed in the midst of that.
And that's the beauty of grace. I mean, like, you don't go in headlong thinking, yep, I'm waking up today and I'm going to ruin my life. And
Right.
yet we do that. And God, in His grace, if we're His kids, He'll pick us up. And it may take a while, but He'll get us set back on our feet and He will heal our wounds. And if we're not His, then He invites us into that relationship with Him, because forgiveness is so important. And sometimes in these relationships, forgiveness is important.
That's what's needed.
And I will confess again, and this happened just yesterday, but I was supposed to, I've been on a roll these last 2 days.
Confession is good for the soul. Let's go.
4 kids. I had said something to the baby via text, and I'm like, hey, can you stop at this store? And I'm watching on Live 360. I'm like, oh, she's passing it. I'm like, hey, are you ignoring me? And she goes, Mama, I'm not ignoring you. My goodness. And I was like, now I feel this big. I felt terrible. But usually she has a little ding on her phone. And I said, I thought you could hear your phone. And she said, and I'm usually not this neurotic, but I was these last few days. And so she goes, I know, I don't know how it got turned off, but it was turned off. I didn't see your text, but we are turning around and we will go get what you need at the store. And I'm like, thank you. And then I'm apologizing, sis.
Oh, I'm sure
sorry.
you
I didn't mean to sound accusatory, but I'm sure, especially via text can be so not helpful. I'm sure. And she's like, it's okay, Mom. So I was like, okay, where's my, what's the right thing here? But I want to keep a short account
Sure.
with my
Which is
kids
good.
too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, my friends, my Ben, but I want that communication to be open with them. And if forgiveness needs to be asked or extended, I want to stay in practice for that.
Yeah. No, that's really good. And, as you think about the stage of life that your kids are in, the relationship's changing, right? You are still mom, and you will always be mom, but the way in which that relationship is going to continue to develop and unfold, it's never going to be what it once was.
Thank you, Captain Obvious.
Right?
You're not helping me.
Yeah, so yes, as you slide more into the mentor, coach, friend role, yeah.
So hard. It's only hard with the baby.
Really?
Yes.
Just you think because she's the last one, and that's what makes it hard?
I cannot figure out what this is. I think maybe. No, I was going to say I was closest to her, but that's not true. I was very close. My kids are like 5 and 6 years apart. So it's like having 3 only children, and was able to spend great time with each of them before the next one came along. I love it. I don't know. It must be just that she's the baby, and these last several years, like, it's been her and I, because the other 2 have been gone for a while. I mean, not maybe physically, but the oldest is. And so I'll see, and Hannah is so patient because I'll get a photo on Time Hop as her, in kindergarten, and I'll send it to her. I don't mean anything by it other than, oh, look how cute. But it could communicate, this is how I see you, because this is what she says to me. I know that's how you think of me. And I'm like, I mean, there may be truth to that, but I try not to operate from that vantage point.
Yeah.
But it slips in, I'm sure. And I'm teaching myself, training myself, going to the Lord. How do I do this? I want to do it well. I want to honor you with these adult kids. And if I have to keep my mouth shut, then Lord, put that gate over it, because only the Holy Spirit can do that.
Yeah. Well, There are times where he, I'm sure, calls you to speak truth and love, and times where he tells you to put the gate there. But one of the other principles that this article you found, that the article author writes about, is there is also an element of, yes, honoring your parents, of extending forgiveness, but also bearing with each other in love. And I think about something I heard a friend of mine talk about when thinking about hiring a person one time. But I think this goes, further than just the employment thing. It goes into relationships in general, whether it's marriage, kids, whatever. If you're in a relationship with people, when you want their good, you also have to understand that you're going to have to accept their bad.
Sure.
Every person is going to have some deficiencies in some areas. They may be extremely gifted in others, and you love that in an employment situation. They may be a great salesperson, but stink at record keeping or the administration or the office, whatever.
Yeah.
Point is, when we are in relationship with people and we love their strengths and their giftedness and the sense of humor and the whatever that is that causes us to be drawn together. Well, there's some stuff that may bug us a little bit about them too. And the shoe goes on the other foot too. There may be things about us where they're going to have to bear with us. They like our certain things that we bring to the table, and probably dislike certain things we bring to the table.
Yeah, that's all so very true. And Colossians 3 reminds us of that we're to bear with one another, have a complaint against someone, what to do, how to forgive, because the Lord, if we think about it, Steve, the Lord has forgiven us so much.
Yeah.
And that's an underpinning truth that we have to remember.
Yeah. Well, this article that we're talking about here, we're going to put that link on the show notes. So hope that you'll check that out. You can click on that link to the Gospel Coalition article. Also, go check out the website. It is DonandStevePlus.com. More information about the show there, opportunity to support this not-for-profit ministry that we have here, this podcast. And you'll find links there to Raphael's Roastery, Raphael'sCoffee.com, because that is kind of what keeps us going. But thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being our plus one.